All right, thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching TVC News, and it's still our ongoing special coverage of Ondo Decides 2024. As you must have been following, voting has since commenced in Ondo State, I should say, where we have a number of candidates vying for the big seat in Alagbaka House. And of course, from the reports we're getting on the field from our various personnel who are bringing us minute-by-minute updates, it's going so far so good. There's some hitches here and there, but you know, the election observers and officials and all the other partners are very much on course, and will continue to keep you updated with all the happenings in Ondo State. Let's bring in our next crop of analysts. Of course, Biodun Sowunmi is still with us. We thank you very much for your contribution so far, and we having to, have you further. We appreciate.
My pleasure.
Indeed. Thanks a lot again. And Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, joins us from our Abuja studios. We thank you and welcome to the program.
My pleasure. Good afternoon.
Right. Welcome. Indeed. Let's begin with you, Mr. Ojo. So this will not be the first time that you will be observing elections in Ondo State, and it will definitely not be the last for you both. But what's running through your mind in terms of expectations? What are the things that you'd like to see in this election? And are you seeing them already?
Thank you. Yes, I'm seeing them already. I look forward to a peaceful election where there will be no death, where there will be no violence. And thus far, I think information has it that the election has been very peaceful. The bit I watched in the morning also showed that the election started many of the polling units on time, and there was a good turnout in some. There are not so good turnout in others. Again, we have incidents of vote buying, which some arrests have been made about that. Recall that Ondo State has a history of Diboko Sebe, which is the euphemism for vote buying. Just like Ekiti gave us the phraseology of stomach infrastructure. Some arrests have been made about some who were caught with cash in the boot of the car. We've also noticed that the people are very enthusiastic. They are very enthusiastic about today's exercise, and it's about the best democracy offers opportunity every 4 years to renew mandate of a serving political leader or to vote him out of power. And we just look forward to the smooth conduct of this whole exercise. However, the worrisome aspect is that voter inducement and vote buying, which, like I mentioned, is already rearing its ugly head. And we just hope that we will not end up with the best election money could buy. We also look forward to a smooth collation exercise later this afternoon in another couple of hours when the poll will have been concluded. Usually, from my own experience of observing elections since 1999, the voting period is not so much of a concern. Hardly will you have any widespread violence during the day. But the collation is the weakest link in every electoral process. And I was live in Benin City a couple of months ago on September 21 when Edo election held. The off-cycle governorship of Edo held. And you find out that when the night comes, you start hearing of, collation was not held at the appropriate places, or the word collation was taken to local government collation because of fear of attack on the War Collation Center and all of that. And I've said on the sister TV station earlier today, if the Nigerian police is claiming to have deployed a commissioner per local government, and that means 18 police commissioners supervising the Ondo election, there is we should not hear of a situation where collation process was truncated or could not hold as scheduled. Because what the electoral guideline says is that collation will start from after the announcement of polling unit result. You take the result from there to the World Collation Center, and that is the RAC, Registration Area Center. From there, you take the result to the Local Government Collation Center before the final stage, which is the State Collation Center later. So situations where you now have the INEC officials collapsing or not respecting that procedure, it's not going to be welcome. Collation should take place at designated places, and party agents should be allowed to witness the collation exercise. In Edo State, we had of situations where some party agents were not allowed into the collation centers, where collation was not held in the designated places because of fear of security threats. That should not happen in Ondo State. And I just hope that INEC will also live to the commitment it made to us in the civil society on October 31, when we had the last quarterly meeting with Professor Mahmoud Yakubu and his commission, where he made commitment to 3 key processes. First is that he promised that the logistic challenge will not rear its ugly head in Ondo, that there will be significant improvement in the movement of poll officials and materials, and that the exercise was going to start as scheduled. That was the first commitment. The second commitment he made to us on October 31 was that the bimodal voter accreditation system device, the BVAS, is going to work seamlessly. And from what we learned last week when they had the mock accreditation exercise, it was judged to be very successful. And we just hope that the BVAS did not malfunction in today's election. The third and the final one is the result management process, where INEC chairman also made commitment that the due process will be followed in the uploading of results on the INEC result viewing portal, that's IREV. And I did remember responding to the INEC chairman's remarks on that day. I represented the civil society at that meeting. And when I was asked to respond to the chairman's, I actually did flag the issue of situations where we see clear case of overvoting being uploaded, results of overvoting polling units being uploaded on the IREV portal, and then where cancelled result is also uploaded. These are not something that should be on the IREV portal, and I just hope that due process, because there are separate forms that should ordinarily have been filled and uploaded where there is cancellation either due to violence or overvoting. Such result is not supposed to be uploaded on the IREV. But what we saw in Edo was that you see cancelled results, you see clear case of overvoting.
All right, Mr. Jide Ojo, apologies for the interruption. We'll come back to talk some more with you and our other analysts about the ongoing election in Ondo State. But in the meantime, we'll take a break and like to let our viewers watching on our sister channel, that's TVC, that we will be pulling out. But of course, the program continues on our other platforms, including YouTube. So you can, of course, go on there and continue to watch and monitor our coverage. We'll be back after the break. Stay with us.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
All right, thanks a lot for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. Let's continue our coverage of the ongoing election in Ondo State. But before that, my colleague, Wingar Oreshegun, is here. Good to see you again.
Exactly.
Right. Biodun Sowunmi is also here with us in the studio for more analysis of the ongoing exercise. And we have, as well, we've been hearing from Jide, who is joining us from our Abuja studios. Also, Adewale Adeoye is with us in our Abuja studios. We thank you very much, Mr. Adeoye, for joining us at this time. Let's have your assessment of the ongoing program, ongoing voting in Ondo State. Mr. Jide made an interesting point as to the difference between the voting process and the collation process. In his view, the collation period process is the one that's usually fraught with uncertainties, with disruptions, and he's urging INEC to do the needful so we don't have that episode this time around.
Well, first of all, I think one thing we need to take home from this election in Ondo State is the fact that democracy represents the best system of government, irrespective of the imperfections associated with democratic norms. It still remains the best form of government for Nigerians and for most societies all over the world. There was an election in Ondo State 4 years ago. The people have been presented with another opportunity to choose their leaders out of their prior free and informed consent. There are imperfections, just like no system is perfect. But I think we should continue to stick to democracy as one of the best forms of government, and that, you know, is a concept that is, you know, becomes perfect over time. You know, we have to engage the process continuously and hoping that every year we improve on our shortcomings. And also referring to those states, it's an off-season election, and I think that if you look at the history of the people of Ondo State, even though we are talking about the Boko 7, the fact of the matter is that Ondo State people are a fiercely democratic people. They have a fiercely democratic culture. If you look at elections that I've had, you know, since 1960s, 1964, 1965, 1983, you know, Ondo Ekiti axis have always been axis of resistance against undemocratic principles. People have laid down their lives to ensure that they defend democracy. So the idea of corruption is a new sociology, you know, in the culture and heritage of the people. And I think this is something that was brought by politically exposed persons. It's not part of the heritage of Ondo State people. So when we are talking about what we are having in Ondo State now, the election that is going on, I think it has been largely peaceful. And we must also admit that over the past years, we have made progress in terms of beavers, in terms of rendering useless the idea of snatching ballot papers, in terms of overvoting. You know, there are a lot of progress that have been made, though there are a lot of imperfections. So I think one of the imperfections we have now is the issue of corruption, which happens before, during, and after the election. When we are talking about corruption before the election, it has to do with political parties, their primaries, and the process of emergence of their candidates. And also we are talking about people being, you know, campaigning, using a lot of incentives, material incentives before the election. Then during the election, we have realized that even though we cannot see people sharing money physically, you know, money is actually being shared, you know, by other means, either through crediting people's accounts or, you know, giving them money after the voting process has taken place. And also after the election, which has to do with state institutions, state actors, INEC, and also the, you know, state or other state institutions that are involved in collating, you know, election results. But I think by and large, we are making progress, and we should also notice that there is no fundamental increase in terms of number of registered voters. In 2002, we had about 1.6. Now, in 2024, we're having just about 1.7. So a marginal increase of about 100,000 voters. But the fact of the matter is that when we have registered voters about 1.7, you know, by the time you collate the results, you discover that, you know, you have probably less than 1 million who actually vote on the day of the election. So there is, you know, a challenge in terms of the gap between registered voters and the people that come out, you know, during that election to cast their votes. And we need to address. Does it mean that for other means, just because maybe they think that they might need it to, you know, they might need that voter card, you know, in other ways, not necessarily for the election? Or does it mean that the political parties are not doing enough to sensitize the people, to let them appreciate the need for them to cast their votes? Or is it that the people are thinking that their votes no longer count? So these are major challenges I think we need to address. But I think as it is now, Nigeria is making progress. We are not moving backward. We will be moving slowly. And I believe at the fullness of time, we are going to address some of these situations that we are, you know, expressed today.
You talked about voter inducement. Now, in all of this, how do we phase it out?
Business mogul, you have someone like the King Sunny Adeoye, who is a juju music maestro. You have someone like you know, Dr. Ologun, who did the state proud for many decades before his demise. So the biggest resource that Ondo has is the human resource. In fact, there are states saying in certain quarters that the dominant candidates in the current elections are about the least educated in Ondo, on the history of Ondo State in the last 25 years. Because this is a state where you have, you know, Dr. Dr. Olusegun Agagu, who was a university don, being the governor for about 7 years actually, from 2003 to 2009. You have someone like Olusegun, who is a medical doctor. You have Adewale, who also was an illustrious son, being the first executive governor in this fourth republic. You have Akere Dolu Oluwarotimi, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, who died on December 27 last year. So when you look at Adewale and the incumbent governor, Lucky Ayedatiwa, when you look at their academic credentials, they are about the least in terms of the potential governor of Ondo State. So Ondo is blessed with human capital. That's the summary of my statement. It's blessed with huge human capital, huge agricultural arable land, and then the oil and gas, not forgetting the solid mineral. So those are the potentials. But what Ondo is crying for is the person that will turn around these potentials into development, huge development for the state. Because, you know, potentials are just what they are. You may have potentials to achieve XYZ. If you don't have a good manager of resources, it remains what it is. It remains latent, it's dormant, But if you have someone who can turn the potentials into, mold it into development, then you see sufficient and impressive development across Ondo State. And that's what I look forward to, that whoever among the 18 candidates, whoever gets to win and be the next occupier of Alagbaka Government House in Ondo State come February 24, 2025, I hope he will be able to turn these potentials into development, because that is what the people of Ondo State are craving for. They want development. They want infrastructural development. They want, peaceful coexistence. They want betterment for their own life, security and welfare for themselves.
Now, I like the fact that you talked about the potentials of these great states, Ondo State, bitumen, second largest deposit, I think, in the world. But why is it so difficult that it is for leaders, maybe past governors, and probably the next one, to actually harness these things, to actually meet the demands of Ondo State, the people in Ondo State? You talked about, earlier, I think it was this morning, you talked about the fact that there are a lot of bad roads in that state. Why is it so difficult? Or is it that the people are asking for too much that the leadership cannot meet?
My brother, the challenge is basically, like I said, unfortunately, Akeredolu, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, in the last 2 years, had been bogged down by ill health so much that throughout last year, 2023, he couldn't do much in terms of governance. For about 6 months, he was away to Germany trying to take care of his health. When he came back, he couldn't even come to Akure. He had to stay in his house in Ibadan, where he eventually passed. I don't know whether he passed in Ibadan, but he never really come back from the time he traveled abroad for medical tourism. He never came back to Akure to govern. So in the last 2 years, there have been leadership vacuum, so to speak. And you don't also want to blame Lucky Aiyedatiwa, who has been in the saddle for the past 1 year. He met a lot of challenges. The vacuum created by the health challenge of Aketi. Recall that throughout last year, it was just Lucky Aiyedatiwa was just lucky not to have been impeached. When his principal was away to Germany, the aides and lieutenants of Aketi, that's Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, did not cooperate with Aiyedatiwa to make him substantive governor. He was still seen as a deputy governor without executive powers. And when he tried to reach out, when he tried to be his own man, to try to work, in fact, to even summon state executive council meeting, it was resolved. And the next thing is political traducers, file the allegations of gross misconduct against him, asking the Chief Judge of Ondo State to empanel a commission of inquiry that will see to his exit. But the luck Aiyedatiwa has was that the Chief Justice, the Chief Judge of Ondo State, was able to stick by the rule of law, because Aiyedatiwa's camp was able to get a court injunction to prevent its investigation and impeachment. And the woman, I don't know whether it's a woman who was the chief judge, said, look, my hands are tied, I have to respect court order. That was the saving grace until eventually he was made the acting governor. He became substantive governor on December 27, and perhaps the backlog of challenges that he met did not allow him to do much. But coming to the issue of the exploration of solid minerals in Ondo State, don't forget there is a challenge between the Land Use Act and the laws governing solid mineral prospects in Nigeria. The land is vested in the state, but the resources on the land the resources that are in the land is vested in the federal government. So you have any states that want to explore the mineral resources in his backyard or in his land, we have to first get license from the Abuja, from the Ministry of Solid Mineral. And that creates a huge challenge for them. Because this whole argument about resource control has been an age-long controversy, where people say, we have oil and gas in our backyard, we have solid mineral in our backyard, but we cannot explore it, and we have to get license from the federal government to explore the resources that are in the land where we control. And that is why the agitation continues about resource control, about true federalism, about fiscal federalism, where people are saying, let states be in control of their resources and let them pay royalty to the federal government, which was a practice from what I read in the First Republic, particularly up to the 1960, between 1960 and 1966, where states, the regions were in control of their resources and were paying royalties to the federal government, as it were. But now everything has been nationalized, and that's why we have said the 68 items on the exclusive legislative list, there's a need to have a restructuring. Let's have a restructuring where there is devolution of powers. And one of the issues, even though this devolution has started under Buhari administration, because it was the last constitutional alteration that have now brought electricity from the exclusive legislative list to concurrent legislative list, it has now brought railway from exclusive legislative list to concurrent legislative list, and has also brought electricity from the exclusive legislative list and then the prison, that's a correctional center, is now under the concurrent list. I hope that we can also have solid minerals coming from the exclusive to concurrent legislative list, so that the state can be in control of their resources truly and genuinely, whether it's oil and gas or it is solid minerals, they can explore and then pay royalty to the center. That way, the states will have more resources to develop the infrastructure within their state. Okay. Because as it is now, given the new minimum wage, many states are crying that they could not pay the minimum wage of 70,000 because it has exponentially increased the amount that they were using, more than double the amount they were using previously in payment.
Right, we'll come back to that point, but let's also get some more reactions on this issue of the giving Ondo residents what they voted for is essentially, and perhaps that would also explain, Mr. Wale Adeoye, this amount, the level of interest, by the hopefuls, people, those men or those individuals who are vying for the big seats in Ondo State, about 18 of them, 17 of them or thereabout. In terms of Ondo is a state that, is attractive, but then what are we getting instead? And now this is another opportunity for us, hopefully, to get, a state that better serves its people. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think the expectations of the people are justifiably very high. We're in a situation where poverty has become a household trend. People can hardly afford 3 square meals. So I think the expectations of the people of Ondo State are high. What we don't know is if these expectations will be met by whoever emerges as the governor of the state, because of the precedents that has been set over the years. If we look at Ondo State, they have had experiences of good governance. For instance, Agashin, who was governor for just 4 years, within that very short period, was able to leave milestones. He established the Ologun glass industry, he established a brick industry, he established, he also established Owena Holdings and then palm oil industry within a very short time. And he also set up a university in 1982, just less than 2 years after coming to power, which was named Obafemi Awolowo University, but later changed to Ondo State University by the military government of Buhari. So if you look at the legacy that we have seen over the years, the people have had very good experiences. The difference between those old leaders and the current one is that the leaders of those days, for instance, Agashin, by the time he left power in 1983, had only a very obsolete upstairs located in Owo. He had no land holdings anywhere all over the world. He had no private estate anywhere all over the world. He lived a very modest and diligent life. Today, said that even when the military government set up panel of inquiry, nothing was found against him. He lived for the people. And he had a consortium of experts that were taking decisions for him. And he picked his commissioners, not driven by favoritism, but based on merit. So his primary focus was, the focal point was on the people. But these days we have a situation where political parties, first of all, focus on political party members. Then the second on the scale of preference are elected political officials or appointed political officials. And that's why we find a situation where whenever they come to power, the first thing is that, the first thing is to buy new cars for commissioners, for members of the House of Rep. For members of the House of Assembly. So the least on the ladder is the people. So when you find a situation where the first thing is to invest on governor, the cost of governors, then before you even think of the people, there is no way that the people can benefit, overwhelmingly from such a system. Ondo State is a very rich state. What is happening is the poverty of ideas or people that have left them probably largely since 1999. Ondo State has bitumen deposits of 42 billion, the largest deposit in the world. It has one of the largest coastlines in Nigeria, about 75 kilometers. So we are talking about maritime economy that can change, the entire landscape. We are talking about cocoa. Ondo State used to be the best in terms of production of cocoa, which has been taken over now by Ivory Coast. At that time, the UPN, Unity Party of Nigeria, under Agashi, had a ranching located at Akono in the Akoko area. And in this area, they were breeding cows that was able to feed almost the entire southwest. So we are not even talking about importing cows from any part of the, of the southwest. Ondo State was one feeding, the